Hey, folks. Thanks for stopping by Kaiser's Castle. That was Axion's Ghost. It's game time. Link will be in the description. Today, me and Baz are going to carry on a conversation we started with you yesterday. Of course, all of these are recordings, so if I show up in the chat, I come out when it premieres. So that's how this is rolling right now because my live streaming with no strikes, zero strikes, I've never had a problem being able to get my live streaming out, but I have for 3 weeks now. So these always have to be recorded. And what we're going to handle today is our 2.0 speech on mentoring and on our time in the military and the differences we've seen come about during that time. And this is something that deserves as much time as we can give, and we want to give you all the time we can. And with that being said, I'll introduce you to my very special guest and brother of mine in the Pipe Hitters Union, Baz. How are you doing today, brother?
Yeah, all good, brother. Yourself?
Oh, I can't complain. If I did, everybody just point and laugh. That's usually how it goes.
That's usually the score, brother.
Well, I'll let you run this thing, and you just start off where we left off in 2009 to present.
Yeah, so thanks for that, brother. And obviously, evening to all those out there that'll be listening, raising a glass. Yeah, it's sort of like part two of the conversation that we had yesterday. And again, it was sort of like it was meant to be that one show, but again, like we usually do, brother, we just digress and talk shit and just go down all these different paths, which is all good. Love doing it. Good digression. Um, and we keep having to bring each other back on track now and again. So this is sort of like part two of that show that we did yesterday. And I think what we were talking about, the main sort of aim of the show, the main subject matter was the changes of that we see in our militaries, the coalition, the US Army, US Marine Corps, the US military as a whole, and the British military, from our experiences. Um, like I said, just to rehash what we were on about yesterday, was each of us has spent significant time in the military, doing various jobs with various people in various theatres and operations around the world. Some that obviously we can speak about quite openly, and some that we can't, because we're still bound by um, certain acts, certain laws, and codes of honor and duty, and all that good stuff. We don't want to sort of
Indeed.
be speaking about things that may affect our brothers and sisters stuff. Obviously, carrying out those operations. And obviously, again, it's that how much we can say without putting ourselves in a position of putting things out there that we shouldn't be putting out there. So again, what we're speaking about yesterday is how it was where we first joined, like sort of the lessons learned. It was like it's a very hard sort of environment to be in. You fuck up, you get punched in the face, and you learn that lesson. You've got to figure it out for yourself. Towards like sort of like the thousands that I mentioned yesterday, the Afghanistan Iraq conflicts, where we're operating against a very what I'd say cowardly enemy that can't stand and fight. So they're using other means, very devious and sly means, through IEDs, proxy bombs, using human shields and things like that. And we had to sort of like reinvent the way we did it. We did our business as war fighters. Again, we're no longer waiting for that third shock army to come over the East German border. Now we're fighting people in deserts, in mountains, and these people dress like the rest of the nation, So it was quite hard to differentiate between who's who. Again, through my experiences, I'd seen some of that in Northern Ireland, where the IRA didn't walk around with fucking black balaclavas on. They were,
Right.
yeah, everyday normal human being, and they weren't all males. You know what I mean? The IRA had massive amounts of females in there doing all kinds of roles. They weren't just doing sort of like the home guard type role, the welfare role. They were part of, active cells. Um,
Intelligence collection. They did
everything.
everything. Yeah.
They were carrying out bombings. It didn't matter whether you had what you had between your legs. You know, you were an IRA, a Republican, in quotation marks, freedom fighter, a volunteer. You were a fucking terrorist. So we that to sort of our counterinsurgency, and we sort of had a heads up. I'd say we were lucky. Well, not real luck. It's just that we unfortunately had been fighting that kind of warfare for quite a long time, and that's sort of like certainly in the early days of Iraq and Afghanistan. Me personally, I had sort of like quite a lot of my American brothers and sisters coming up and asking um, uh, for advice and things like that because as Brits we've been dealing with insurgencies for quite a thing, and it was sort of quite a new concept for our American brothers and sisters of this counterinsurgency thing. Apart from sort of like the SF guys that deal with it on a quite regular basis, but I found quite quickly because us Brits we were quite set in our ways because we've been fighting this battle for so long that it only took sort of 18 months to 2 years for the US to sort of catch up and in areas overtake our expertise in counterinsurgency
To
because it
reeve
was
up and switch
yeah
on. Yeah.
because it was such a new sort of concept for you guys. You were a lot more fluid in taking what was good and what was bad in the ways that we were doing things. And let's be honest, it was part of our doctrine as British soldiers. Because
Well, it's
again,
been that way
dealing
since the
with
Malaysian
yeah
and the
the Malayan incident, Oman,
yep.
and our various fucking frolics around the world, the fucking empire and all that good stuff. Um, so we quickly found that the Americans were all over our shit, and then said, "Yeah, that's good that the Brits are doing. That's good that the Brits are doing," and dispensing with the crap, the doctrinal crap that we'd been dealing with. And then we were sort of a couple of years down the line, we were turning to the US and saying, "Oh, how do you do this?" And then again, it was just sort of that special relationship we've got bouncing off each other and making the way that we do business a lot more effective. Um, basically delivering good results. So that was sort of that, and then as we got on to sort of military change, the way that we learnt our mistakes was certainly in the thousands in Iraq and Afghanistan, where you couldn't afford to let your guys make mistakes, but you had no room for error. You know, like you are in peacetime or back in the old days. You know, where you guys could fuck up, and then you could you know what I mean, mentor them to make the right decisions. So when they're becoming leaders, they're making the decisions, and they can mentor their troops. And again, we were afforded that in Afghanistan because, like I said yesterday, if some of you guys fucked up, it usually ended up with people coming back in plastic bags and flag draped coffins. And it's only sort of now post those conflicts in sort of like 2013 onwards that we're lapsing back into the stuff that me and you, Shuff, were trained in doing. You know,
Right.
where you're allowed to make mistakes and you can mentor your guys again. But it's sort of that re-emergent Russian threat, the Chinese threat, and stuff like that, where the young war fighters that were on top of the game in the thousands are now turning around and asking us, like, okay, so if the Russians did decide to swarm into an Eastern European country, what did you used to do? You know, and then it's usually okay. Fucking get my old books out and think how did we used to do that? You know what I mean? The old trench warfare and
Right.
taking out lumps of armor, advancing towards us, and but it's a lot more fluid now. I think we're very adept, both nations. Um, and obviously I can't speak for the Aussies
Well,
and the Dutch and the French and all, but I'm speaking out of our personal experiences. I found that the way that we had approached this new kind of proper warfare, as we call it, we won't call it counterinsurgency, sort of nation state against nation state, like it would be back in the 80s, the Cold War. We were a lot more open to change and changing these drills instead of just sticking by the old shit like we used to do. I mean, what are your
right.
thoughts on that, brother?
My thoughts are complete. I mean, and they are completely on board with yours. Look, we live in an era of fourth generation warfare. That's a fact that we have realized. And what we used to think of would be Spetsnaz or terrorist organizations like German Red Army Brigade, the IRA, this, that, and the other. That's already infiltrated into our countries if they want to use it. Spetsnaz and probably GRU and KGB guys. That's a reality in the West that we have to also remember that we still have the migrant, as they like to call them, which are illegal aliens to all of our nations, threat. But see, nobody wants to look at it. You know, nobody appreciates a soldier till the enemy's at the gate. And honestly, with fourth generation of warfare, we're talking about complete dominance, you know, where we have to dominate the war space. And unfortunately, I think we've allowed the enemy through the gates. And I don't know if we're going to have the dominance. Um, in my way of thinking and thought process, it is going to be down to individual soldiers. And it's not even going to be organized army. I think we're actually looking at returning to a similar model before the Renaissance, where you had nation capital states, capital S states, providing armies after that, and but before that, what was it? It was the English companies that ran around in England and Europe itself and sold themselves, and it will be dependent upon individual soldiers. And I know everybody likes to talk smack, but it's probably going to be old fucks like me and you, in all honesty, that can still handle themselves. And you know, I think the youth that have, here's something that everybody will talk shit about: millennials and Gen Zers that are now coming of age. They'll talk shit about them, but they don't realize a lot of them still go into our military. They're not
Yeah,
all bad.
yeah,
They just
yeah.
need proper mentoring.
And again, it's something that we touched on, brother, and I think we did mention it on sort of the closing moments of our show yesterday. On and it's a conversation we had offline, and both came to a full agreement. Is that there's the old bastards like us that we're trained in shooting someone advancing towards us who had a lump of fucking armor next to him, who's carrying an AK-47, Warsaw Pact. You know, that's what we were trained to do. And it was, again, it was that if the Soviets decide to invade, you know, where the younger generation, and I'm talking the thousands, the Iraq, Afghanistan conflict, it wasn't if this happens, if we get attacked, it was when we get attacked. For real life shit that was happening as they were going through training. You know, I mean, I was training guys, and it was like when you get to your battalions and when you go to Iraq, Afghanistan, in brackets, insert whatever fucking theatre you're going to, when you get there and when you get attacked, they were training for stuff that was happening. You know what I mean? They could, during their breaks, they might have just been on the ranges and put rounds down at a target. During their breaks, they were getting out the mobile phones and they were watching snippets on the news. They were watching videos on Facebook of guys in their regiments getting rounds down the range in Afghanistan or Iraq. You know what I
Right.
mean? So this is what you're training to do. So again, leads me back to this being allowed to make mistakes. They weren't allowed to make mistakes. We had to train it out of them to make mistakes because in 6 to 12 months' time, these guys are going to be trudging around the green zone in southern, you know, I mean, Afghanistan, in Helmand province, carrying out these operations against Al Qaeda, Haqqani Network, Taliban, whatever you want to fucking call them this week. So it was they were getting turned out of their training establishments and to the battalions, and they were leaving, getting on that plane and flying to Afghanistan, Iraq, whatever, a lot more trained than me and you could ever dream of. You know, because it was real life lessons. It was something that happened on the ground. Certainly, when I was instructing, in sort of that niche corner that I was instructing in, something had happened in theatre, and I'd be getting a phone call from one of my guys because I always had it was either myself or one of my other instructors were out in Afghanistan, getting basically this has happened. We need to train this into our courses. So instead of having doctrinal changes and having this massive sort of convoluted way of introducing new course content, it was an email or a Skype phone call or Baz, this has just happened out in Afghanistan. This is how it happened. This is how we dealt with it. What are your thoughts on it? Okay, yeah, we can do this. We can do this, and we were changing something that used to take years to change in the way we trained people. It was taking less than a month.
The,
You know,
the
uh,
interesting thing that you just said, and you may not even have realized you just said it, that is the institutional memory that we have going back to when we had the red threat, okay? But it did cycle. You are so correct, and people miss this every day. In this new kind of total dominance warfare that we have, it is the phone call, it is the Skype, it is the social media. And the problem being is most soldiers are right wing. I hate to say this, but it is true. We understand the realities of life. We're not just looking at it, and we're not being political. I'm just saying we tend to understand the realities and the threats. So that obviously pushes us to the right, because of, the new standard, right? Even though you may not be right wing, I may not be right wing, you're obviously there now. I mean, flip, when you have people on YouTube like uh, Dagon Tim Pool and Dave Rubin, and both severe leftist, being considered right wing, that says a lot. But just by our nature and our thought process, we are now right wing. And with those abilities being taken away on social media, when the threat does come that we just talked about a second ago, when I went on my little spin, that's going to actually hamstring it. And I do believe it's being done by the globalists. That's my own opinion. Nobody, Baz does not share my opinion, and he doesn't speak for this channel, and I don't speak for this channel. I'm just telling you my opinion. In my opinion, I am the foremost expert on. Nobody's more expert on it, just like Baz is the foremost expert on his opinion. But what we are trying to do is to tell you, let's go back and let Baz finish it out. But I agree with you wholeheartedly, and that's another threat I see in the horizon.
yeah, it's that the emerging threats that let's be good. We're going to be fighting hybrid warfare now, which leads me back to sort of the things I was touching on there, where the way it's the battle space now isn't. If you think back when we again I keep reverting back to us old bastards, warfare was very slow. You were chances are you're going to fight armored infantry warfare. Thinking back to the Blitzkrieg, okay, that's where modern warfare comes from now. It's from the Germans, blitzkrieging their way through Europe, armored infantry supported by close air support. And we're still doing the same shit these days, albeit with a lot more finesse. The weapons that we're firing, everything that we're using is more advanced, from communications to weapon systems to just the way that we manoeuvre, down to the boots that we wear. Excuse me. So the warfare now is so fast. From what used to take weeks and months now takes days. Hours and days. If I wanted to get a message to someone back in the day, I remember like back in Bosnia trying to get a message from someone in Bogojno to someone in fucking Gorny Vakuf or in Prozor. I had to bang it through about 3 rebros. Guys sitting on top of a fucking mountain in a tent. And I know this because I had to do it myself with a radio set, and that radio set may or may not fucking work. Where nowadays it's instantaneous. We've got satellite communications that were once the sole sort of a property of three-letter organisations and special forces, where nowadays it's you've got one in the palm of your hand as a fucking 13-year-old girl. You know, so everything now is so quick. What with the information technology that we're using, and it's just obviously the battle space is ruled by it nowadays. Everything from green force trackers to GPS to satellite communications. Again, the things that the average soldier is using nowadays and takes for granted were things. It was a black art when we were younger soldiers. So I'm finding now that the young people that we're getting through nowadays, I'm not saying they're more intelligent, but they're certainly a lot more selected. You know, especially as an infantry soldier, the old adage that an infantry soldier, you can lift a bus but you can't spell it. You know, for putting on boots and charging at the enemy with his rifle, because that's all he is a weapon system. He's a piece of meat that shoots another piece of meat. He's a dumb animal. It's totally different nowadays from the kit that we were using in Afghanistan. It sort of boggled my mind how the average young soldier is just such a weapon now.
It's
He
be-
can call it, yeah, he can call in as much firepower as one man as we could as a platoon or a company back in the 90s. You know what I mean?
it,
And the weapon systems that he uses. I mean, did you see that as well?
oh yeah, it's become everybody's somewhat of an operator if they're out
Yeah,
there in the field. If they're not a FOBIT, and there's a place for FOBIT. I better explain that. That's somebody that never leaves the fob. They just wait on the base. They handle supply, logistics, security, whatever they're doing. But those that leave the base understand that, and that was something we really did do during the Cold War that I think has been lost doctrinally, but it hasn't been lost institutionally in memory. Institutional memory has not slipped on this. Is the rear echelon, the REMFs, the rear echelon motherfuckers, did know that during that time, even the rear wasn't safe because of Spetsnaz and Alpha teams. You know what I'm talking about.
yeah,
And we're talking KGB, GRU guys, and Spetsnaz is Soviet special forces. And you can't take out of the equation the terrorist threat. That was always known. The rear echelon's going to be un, unscrewed like nobody's ever seen in fourth gen warfare. And it's even into the cyber community. But
yeah,
everybody's so plugged in, you and me as old bastards or old cunts, as we like to say, um, we understand it. And that's why I think you and I both distance ourselves with technology so much. I mean, we were there when DARPANET and shit was first kicking off.
yeah,
And that was before most people could get on the internet, yet we could get on the internet and find out what's going on over there, what's happening in real time. And the rest of the world was trying to catch up. And now it's real time, folks. This is real deal shit that Baz is talking to you about. And I have to agree wholeheartedly. Your thoughts, brother?
yeah. It's certainly like when you said there, it's sort of distance ourselves from technology, and it got to the point where I was thinking to myself as I was sat in one of my teams in Afghanistan. It was like, look, I'm looking to my left and my right, and these young guys are fucking all over this kit, and it was sort of like they were born into it where we weren't. You know what I mean? So they're born into it and they're learning how to use this stuff from an early age, where we're not. We're trying to learn it at a later age, which is harder to do because a young brain is a sponge and it absorbs more information
Hell yeah, we were still
faster.
using load bearing kit with the straps, which are a death trap, but they're still useful in certain manners, in certain ways, and load bearing vest. And now with the armor, they're carrying more weight than even we did with the plates. Everything, man. I mean, we
Mm,
did. I have as a contractor, and doing what I did as I did it. Um, than I ever did as a fucking troopy and a squatty, as the Brits like to call it. I'm carrying more kit now and more weight as an old man than I've ever carried, and I think you feel the same way. And it is like they're born to it. I mean, I've watched my son and know what he did following his path. Luckily, he went down a path very similar to his father, and I'm amazed at he comes back cockstrong, uh, filling his oats, this, that, and the other, and still he's maintained his sense of honor. And I think that's in the end, I think that's what drives us, honestly, in the PHU. Your thoughts?
Yeah, certainly does. Certainly does. Like I say, when your son comes back and you see the way that he's, you know what I mean, carries himself, and not just that, but the way that when he tells you about the work he's doing, it's like fucking hell, you know. And you see some of these younger guys. Um, Now, I remember, like I say, I keep flitting back to that, like the good old days. You know, I remember carrying a house on my back. You know, and that you've been told that you can live out of this thing on your back for fucking up to 6+ months.
Indeed.
You know, where sort of when we were working out of Afghanistan and Iraq, and I keep using Afghanistan because I did more time there than anything else. Um, it's you're working, and now we did our job a bit differently to the Americans. Purely again, 'cause I keep going back to numbers. We used to do what was called the ink spot theory, where due to the fucking just there's only about 4 or 5 of us fucking knocking about at any one time, that we held certain places of tactical importance, like FOB, PBs, patrol bases, in certain areas, and everywhere within a sort of 500 to 800 meter radius of that was clear. Everything else was bandit country, and that's why sort of
Indeed.
certainly in 2009, where the USMC had another 30,000 troops rock up, purely because we handed a lot of our AOR over to the Americans. It's like places, you know, they were taking over places like Nadi Ali, Musa Kala. Obviously, I was part of the handover takeover of that to the Americans, and it was just like they were saying, "How the fuck have you guys held on to this place?" And it's just like, well, basically, we've just dropped bombs on fucking everything that we can see, apart from actually the Musakala town centre itself. You know what I mean? We just had to like this force field around Musakala itself. You know what I mean? Everything
Right.
outside of it is just Taliban, and obviously then the USMC had to go out and they were like astounded how not so much how well we'd done it, but how many actually enemy outside of this sort of little ink spot. If you think dropping an ink spot on a map, that's where it comes from. There's just sort of and everything inside that ink spot is good guys. Everything outside of it is bad guys. Um, so I've digressed and I've lost my train of thought, which I usually do. So yeah, that's how we used to do it. Um,
No, you haven't lost your train of thought. You're still on 2009, and we're
yeah,
working ourselves forward to this day. So you're fine,
yeah.
Baz. Don't ever worry. I think the people
Getting old,
actually,
getting
well,
old.
hey, we both are, right? But the thing about it is, I think the youth that are serving, that I hope we
Yeah, that's what we
reach,
were talking about. Yeah,
yeah, I think they actually get something from us, and I don't believe, I've never seen any proof that my son listens to any of our shows, and I have never required him to do so, but and I wouldn't do that anyways. He's a free sentient man. But I think the youth that listen to our shows get something from it, and they probably like, comment, share it, and but you can't tell who's liking what you are putting out, and you can't tell how many shares.
yeah,
There's no way to see your reach, and not even in the stats, because once somebody's sharing it, they could download it and share it, and it goes. You lose all control of it, and I encourage people to do that if they want to, because these are important talks, folks, on the future of our countries. And that's why Baz and I are having these conversations. Your thoughts, brother?
Yeah, it certainly is. It's like that freedom of information, and again, it's just the future of it. And again, we see it in the battle space how some information can be used as a weapon. And going back to our chat that we had offline the other night about this generation, or certainly this slash the generation of the thousands versus our generation. And if some of the listeners are from our generation and they're what we call the Cold War warriors and stuff like that, this might be I'm trying to think of the word. It's not meant to insult, but it might not be a popular view that both me and Shuff have spoken on this quite at length. That the warrior of the Cold War, that what if warrior, and the way that they're trained was to go up against people from your own regiments, even your own companies, but of the generation of the thousands, we'd be outfought. We'd be outfought. We're not saying they're fitter soldiers, that they're more intelligent, but just the way that they're trained. They're trained to think on their feet a lot more than we ever were, you know. And we'd be outfought as the older generation. There's no way that we'd win that battle purely because of the kit that we were carrying. And again, that picture that you put up the other day, Shuff, of the M16A1, and then today's weapons, just out, everything would be outfought. Could they outdrink us and outfist fight us? Probably not. But certainly as militarily, force against force, we'd have a very, very hard time in getting the upper hand. Again, just because of the actual firepower and the training that the guys receive then and to these days. Because again, like I said, we're moving into a more hybrid warfare where it's three-pronged. You've got your terrorist threat, you've got your counterinsurgency threat, and then you've got the nation states threat, the Chinese and Russian emergence. So what we train now isn't doctrinal, sort of like top down. The general gives the orders, the commanding officer then gives the orders, the officer commanding gives the orders, the platoon commander gives the orders, and then the section commander, your team commanders give the orders. It's very now on its head. It's sort of ground up. And young leaders these days, sort of your corporal, your team leaders and such, are now called we call them the tactical corporal, which fights the 4 block war, which is like there's outright door kicking gone on a 1 block, and then sort of security on the other block. Then there's sort of the rebuilding and stuff. You know what I mean? It's a 4 block war. It's just that different thing that everything can happen within that 4 blocks, which we certainly see in places like Iraq. In urban operations and obviously in Libya and Syria and places like that. So your corporals nowadays, your junior NCOs would massively outthink and outfight the NCOs of the 80s stroke 90s on any given Sunday, purely because there is that much investment in them, because they know that's where the war's won. It's not won in Whitehall or in the Pentagon. It's won at the ground level where decisions are being made on the fly. We're getting attacked. Right, let's do this, let's do this, let's do this. Done there. It's not, sir, we're getting attacked. Ops, we're getting attacked. And then they're firing it up. And 3 hours later, an order comes down, which it never was anyway. But it's certainly more fluid nowadays because of the type of warfare we're fighting. And that is the future. And the warriors of this generation, the next generation, are only going to get better. But what we are in danger of is slipping back into that old doctrinal way of war fighting, where it's the what ifs, with sort of a drop of counterinsurgency, counter-terrorism thrown in there, and we all join the military to do one thing, and that's to fire guns and blow shit up. You know what I mean? All the other stuff's ancillary for pay, pension, travel the world, go and, you know what I mean, meet a girl in every port and all that good stuff. Um,
Oh
and
yeah, oh yeah.
the only stuff we can get now is training stuff. You know what I mean? The operations that we're conducting now, unless you're part of a certain element of the military, the special forces and such, that kicking doors in isn't an everyday occurrence like it was in Afghanistan and Iraq. You know what I mean? So we are in danger of falling into that mentality, and it's up to not so much the younger commanders, but those commanders of the Afghanistan generation that are now sort of like senior leadership. When I say senior leadership, I'm talking like your sergeant majors and your young lieutenants and captains then are now majors and lieutenant colonels and colonels. You know what I mean? They've got to be that recognition, that recognizing that we can't go back into that way of thinking, the what ifs, which personally, being a Brit, and obviously British military, or was British military until recently, hasn't set in yet. We're still quite active in the way that we train. Are we training the way that we want to train at ground level? No, we're not. And you can ask any British infantryman, are you getting enough time behind your rifle? Are you getting enough time behind your shotgun, your sniper rifle, your pistol? Are you doing the transition work from primary to secondary weapon system as much as you like? No, you're not. Again, it's meant to be part of your DNA. It's meant to be part of muscle memory. And again, we're losing that because we're dealing with other shit,
Right.
the barracks shit, where you're kicking doors in and being cool and fucking blowing stuff up. You're dealing with the old shit, like uh, what you call sharp over there. No, the old don't rape cunts, don't drink until you die, don't beat people to death.
Right.
You know what I mean? Don't
It's
set fire.
taking
Yeah,
it's taking the masculinity out of it. I thought I was a clever cunt the other day, and I came up with a thing, and a guy, you'll see it on my page. A guy actually found a quote that I didn't even know about, but his quote actually made more sense, and I'll give him the credit without saying his full name. But Noble Senior knows who I'm talking about on this, probably, if he listens. I don't know if he does. But it's a quote from somebody that I had never heard anything about. I'd made a comment, and his quote's better, and it's from this guy, Heraclitus. And out of every 100 men, 10 shouldn't even be there. 80 are just targets. 9 are the real fighters. And we are lucky to have them, for they make the battle. Ah, but the one is a warrior, and he will bring the others back. That's Heraclitus. And Cletus, maybe. I don't know how to pronounce that. It's Greek to me. But that's something that I think does hold true, except for in this age of training and the way things are happening. I think we have a larger predominance of fighters. I don't know about real fighters because, I've said this before, and it's one of my shuffisms in Kaiser's Castle. Um, a fighter, everybody can. Look, you and I have both seen awesome dudes do awesome things. And you've also seen those same awesome dudes hesitate. It's about the recovery of that hesitation. How quickly you snap out of it. Because everybody can be shocked or stunned by. I know you say it was a slower form of battle at one time. And honestly, every battle has a rhythm. It's those that understand there's a rhythm to it, there's a cycle to it, and knowing when to put their put their components into the right area to sway that battle in favor from. And this is real stakes. This is not video games. There's no reset button. This is not Game of Thrones where that actor walks away after they get their throat slit. This is real deal. Game over. You just rolled craps. Your thoughts?
yeah. It's a difficult sort of like subject to broach on that. The way like we were fighting and the way that we got looking to fight, it's all procedural. It's, you know what I mean. You're never going to fight the way you want to fight. That's what I'm trying to say.
Right.
You know, you've got your way of thinking and your way of fighting um, is different to what is actually set down by your command and stuff like that.
Well, what's the first thing that goes away as soon as the bullets start flying?
The
You know
plan,
it. That's right. The plan. The
the plan.
plan's gone.
Which I mean, I feel quite strongly about this, and the way that that hesitance and stuff like you touch on, and I voice myself quite strongly in this on my page on Facebook and stuff like that about. And now this, I don't know whether you're seeing that. You've certainly seen it at certain levels in your military, and it's on the media and stuff like that. And it's slightly different contexts. Like the dude, one of the team guys, one of the SEALs that had stabbed a supposed injured enemy fighter, and he died. And the guy's getting fucking strung up for it, and his teammates have turned against me. He's been made a scapegoat. Over
Right.
dragging shit up from the 70s with Bloody Sunday, where the paras opened up on some protesters. And again, it's the narrative that's been twisted. The only people that know that went on there were the people that were there. And
That's
there's
right.
two sides to that story. Obviously, the Republican side is you've got the baby killers just opening fire on innocent people, but then you ask any of the paras that had just come back from operations anyway. You know, that was still quite. They still had, when I say blood on the hands, you know what I mean? The weapons still had fucking carbine in them. You know, they
Right.
come back from
Right.
an
I get it.
operation and then they're sent to a northern island where they're opened up on by several Republican gunmen. And this was a peaceful crowd. They weren't there to fucking wave rainbow banners and sing fucking songs. You know,
They
there was
weren't
a
wearing
yeah,
black mask and balaclavas. They weren't Antifa. They were
yeah.
they were going there doing their thing, and bad things happen. You know, good people
And people
die.
and some people got shot.
Yeah.
Yes, there was people shot that fucking shouldn't have been shot. But again, there's soldiers being dragged into the courts now. Dennis Hutchins, or AKA Soldier F, who's now facing murder charges.
30,
47 years,
30 or 40
40,
years later. Yeah.
47 years, mate, after the fucking fact.
Yeah, it's
And now
bullshit.
he's not the only one. He's not the only one. You know what I mean? There's several in the pipeline.
I know.
And if you go on Facebook and you type in like Million Veteran March and stuff like that, there's tens of thousands of turning out onto British streets with the medals on, with their old berries on, marching in protest to this outside Parliament all over the country.
All
Um,
veterans in the world should be getting out there and protesting. And I'm going to tell you why. Because what's fine under one leadership, and it started with this bullshit Me Too movement.
mm,
All veterans that have done their job, been correct to what their leadership says, will be violated by the new leadership. If we don't get this under control, well, we're not going to get it under control. You and I both know this. Here's the issue that we're going to face. We're all here. Here's the thing that's freeing, and I guess it'll free your mind too. If I know your mind's already free, but it should free your mind too and make you a little more understanding to it. Just realize at this point that any normal human being that doesn't want to accept this clown world that we have somehow become a part of, that I know you didn't see it, I didn't see this coming, but Marxism has taken hold, and so has Maoism. And it's just the way the reality is. And so I guess we're actually speaking to the people that haven't been lost. And maybe they'll see the truth. And maybe they won't, honestly. And that's okay too, but honor, loyalty, the little things that we always took for granted. And then peace of mind. The peace of mind that knows that I will stand. Well, that's my house's credo. We will stand. And with that sidetrack, I'll let you go on about it. But I had to say that all veterans of the world, you better unite. And when I say the world, I mean the West and there's other veterans that you've served with and I've served with from the Near East and other continents. If we don't do this, then you'll be held accountable one day. And it's a sad, sick thing. If you can't get them when they do it, oh, let's go 47 years back and get them then.
And
Because
it's
now,
80-year-old man.
yeah, yeah, it's disgusting, you know. So, yeah, go on, brother. I'm sorry for hijacking.
No, no, feel free, brother. Feel free. Again, it's good to have sort of like two sort of sides, two sort of insights to it. But where I'm coming from is they're playing a fucking dangerous game. What I mean by that, like I mentioned yesterday, the old Northern Ireland mentality where you fire your round. This is what used to happen in Northern Ireland. If you open fire on the streets of Belfast or Londonderry, something like that, as soon as you fired your weapon, the military police would come in. They'd seize your weapon once it had been made safe. They'd put it in an evidence bag, and then that weapon would be sent away and to tested for ballistics. You yourself, as that soldier, and I'm going to choose my words carefully. You weren't arrested, but you were segregated and locked in a fucking room.
Yep,
You know what I
you
mean?
were
Basically, you were
restricted to
you
barracks.
you were yeah, or locked in a room where you had no sort of contact with anybody else. You couldn't even touch your own kit. You were locked in a fucking cell, basically, but you were not facing arrest. But you were placed under caution, um, and you were guilty until you were found
Proven
innocent. You know
innocent.
what I mean?
Yeah.
Right? Those rounds, he fired 2 rounds, and they all went into the that. But he shot this bloke. Why this bloke has done this, and you know what I mean. So basically, you were being tried for fucking murder, but it was sort of like pre-trial. So obviously, it was just that umbrella, and therefore, it sort of created a mentality of trigger shy soldiers, trigger shy infantrymen, and certainly myself, I
Right.
saw this because I was the same. Like obviously, in the 90s, we had Bosnia going on. Um, we still had sort of the Falklands
Oh, yeah.
responsibilities, and we were still patrolling Northern Ireland. So you could go from one tour to Northern Ireland, you know what I mean, where you daren't fucking point your weapon at any fucker, to going to Bosnia when you're getting an armed showdown with fucking a bus full of Serbs. You know what I mean? And I'm not talking Serb. I'm talking Serb paramilitaries, the actual absolute genocidal murdering motherfuckers. You know what I mean? That you're in an armed showdown with theirs, and then it's okay. Then he's pointing an RPK at me. Do I put a fucking round in him? It was yeah, but remember, it's that mentality. Yeah, you can go by your rules of engagement, that we've it's part of our DNA. But again, you just come back no more than 18 months ago from Northern Ireland, where you're aware where the muzzle of your weapon is at all times. It's not like if you're on patrol in Afghanistan or Iraq or somewhere like that, where you can fucking sweep everybody with your muzzle as long as your fingers off the fucking trigger. You are pointing your muzzle in people's faces, but out in Northern Ireland, your muzzle had to be. You know what I mean? You couldn't like walk past someone, turn around, and point your muzzle at a fucking child, for example,
Well,
because it would be caught on camera or on tape, and then it was used as a weapon. But
well,
what I'm trying to get back to, go on.
just think about this real quick. In '05, '06, standard operating procedure was crack door if you can, or window, and engage a threat while you're trying to get off the X, right? That was American doctrine, actually. Roll hard, put your thumbs on the 50. If you're in oh shit, I can't even think of the name of, I think it's, shit. Why a striker or a MRAP, right? That's how you rolled. And, you just threw out hate. So people,
Yeah,
it's a false dichotomy. I liked the British model more, where you pretty much integrated into the society you're in. You feel comfortable in it, and you should. But it doesn't mean that I hated on the American stuff. I just knew if there was an American convoy, turn left or right, get the fuck away from it, because bad juju is happening.
yeah,
And yeah,
yeah, certainly. And again, that's something I can speak on in a short while. But it's when we started going to sort of like Bosnia and places like that, where it was a bit more, you know what I mean? Point your weapon at these fuckers. If needs be, brass them up. You know what I mean? Put rounds into their fucking
Right.
flesh. Um, and then it was Iraq and Afghanistan, where it was you know what I mean? It was completely, like I say, showing that fucking hatred. When we were rolling around Kabul, quite early on in the thousands, the unit I was with, it was you used it, and it was a part of your escalation of violence. You know what I mean?
Kabul
It
and
was,
Baghdad were fucking the Wild West. If you want to
yeah,
know what the how the West was won, that was Kabul and Baghdad in the early stages of the war.
yeah. It was sort of like it became part of your rules of engagement. You saw a taxi driving towards you at fucking speed. The first thing you did was you swept that weapon system at him, and it was like that's step one, motherfucker. You know what I mean? Next one, if you had time, it was your hand up, fucking stop, the mini flare, whatever. Obviously, it was your decision at that time. Do I have time to fucking escalate this through these fucking certain steps, or am I just fucking depressing them fucking triggers? You know what I mean, on the 50 and pulling apart this fucking taxi. I'm a fucking sticking 762 through the winds. You know what I mean? But what going back to my original point is the vilification and the persecution of these soldiers from the 70s and the 80s, you know what I mean, is now throwing doubt into this generation's warfighters, because you think if that can happen then, 47 years later, I'm going to fucking Iraq or Afghanistan or Libya
Indeed.
or Syria or fucking wherever we're operating still in the world. And if something happens, I've got to second guess myself. Because, yes, they've been given these rules of engagement, but they mean fucking nothing in 47 years' time, which with ever side of the government sitting on. You know what I mean? Because
Right.
all my friends are either forgotten, they're dead, they can't be reached because they've emigrated to different countries and they're off whatever through whatever fucking means. You're getting hauled into a court, and they're asking you, "So what did you do on that morning?" Motherfucker, I'm fucking 80 years old. I can't remember the last time I took a shit. Never mind what I did in 1972 and how many rounds I fired and which direction I fired, and you know what I mean. And
It
so,
all stems from this fucking Me Too shit. I'm telling you, man. They have set themselves up, and it's crucifying them too. And those on the left that think they're immune, and I hate that false dichotomy because you and I have had offline conversations. The left and right paradigm is a bullshit paradigm. It's more circular. If you put your hands out right and left, put your fingertips together, and guess what? It always leads to death. And on both the left and the right. And that's what they don't understand is the human factor. You know, these people think their grandfather or their father will never be touched, or their mother now, or their mother or grandmother who served and had to pull the trigger. A leftist that I know, a strong leftist, and I still love her. She is a person who she chose to be, and I feel bad for that, but it is what it is. She went total SJW and got triggered by me, from saying, you might want to reevaluate your thought process here. Um, well, when that happened, it didn't cause me to hate her, but all of a sudden, I'm blocked. Everything I said, and I know the shit talk that went on behind the scenes, which when I say love, I mean as a sister in war. I'm not talking I love her physically. And I've never known that, and I didn't want to know that. Trust me. She was just a strong human being. And I respected that because I had a great mother. And she had a lot of those attributes. She even mentioned me in her fucking book. It was fucking ridiculous what happened. But the thing that happened is I realized you're going to eat yourself. And they are. They're eating their own parents, their own grandparents on this. And like I've said before, everybody I know that served has had some member of their family serve before them. And if they think that they're in a quiet chamber and that they can have these thoughts and push them into functional political policy and not have ramifications within their own realm, they're sadly mistaken. Your thoughts, brother?
Yeah, like I say, it's on that subject. It's easy to fucking cast judgment on, you know what I mean, the actions of men and women who have carried out certain actions in certain places in the world for certain reasons. Um, Days, hours, minutes, fucking years, decades later, when you've never experienced it yourself. Uh,
Exactly.
and call that in. I would expect someone, if someone turned around to me in 20 years' time and said, this day in this operational area, this operational theatre, you did this, and we're going to question you at that. And my sort of fucking train of thought is straight so what experience have you got of that? How do you fucking know what I've done? You know what I mean? And how I handled it. How would you handle it? Now, if that person never done that, their opinion means fucking nothing to me.
I
You know,
I
I don't comment on medical malpractice because I'm not a fucking doctor. You know what I mean? A
I
brain surgeon has left a staple in someone's fucking cranium. I'm not going to start calling him out 30 years down the line because I don't know anything about it. And it's the same with politicians and these fucking ambulance chasing lawyers. Like we had the
yep.
Iraq historic allegations team, and it was just lawyers that were they were just dredging. They were paying Iraqi informants, Iraqi witnesses to see what happened. And these Iraqis are walking up, and these are the bullets that they fired at my house, and they've
Making
got like
lies. Yeah.
and they've got like fucking old AK bullets, but like complete actual rounds. You know what I mean? Not the actual warhead itself.
Right.
I fished these out of the wall of my house. The fucking 7.62 short, complete rounds.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
But there's something more funny, man. And this happened to me. Um, I was going and I got the job with that agency. It matters not, but polygraph, right? And I'll never forget it. Not going to say the exact time it happened, but it did happen. It was after Iraq, uh, so it would have been after '06. Okay, that's all I'll say on it. But going through my polygraph, the polygraph investigator, he's there, and of course he's a cop. I'm not a cop, at that point. I was not a cop. And he asked, "Have you ever fired a shot in anger?" And I said, "Oh yeah, that's happened." His eyes got big and he's like, "Oh my god, I got this guy. This guy had to have done some very bad shit, obviously, right?" Kind of interesting to me at this point. And I'm like, "Oh, I see where you're going with this." And he was like, "When?" It was almost masturbational the way he said when. And I looked at him and I said, "Well, I can't really remember the time." I said, "But it was either December-ish of '05, January of '06. I don't know. Somewhere around that time. That was the last time I fired a shot in anger, as you asked me." And he goes, "Oh, I got this guy. I can see it in his face." And I'm like, "Okay, cool. I'm just waiting for his next question." And he goes, "Where'd you do this at?" I said, "It was in Mosul, Iraq." And he goes, "What?" I said, "Oh yeah, I guess you didn't see my application, or you did and you just thought I was bullshitting." "Yeah, it was in Mosul, Iraq. And we got ambushed." And he goes, "Well, I won't ask you about that. I got the job, by the way." But that's how cunty that it can get, brother. And I'll let you run with it after that.
Yeah. Like I say, there's a quote I'm trying to remember. Osmus, it goes on delightful um, to those who have no experience of it. You know, where it's easy to and to glamorize certain things and take that unbiased outside um, view a long time after it's happened and to dissect everybody's actions. Remember the actions that we've carried out and those have carried out who've been in that situation is generally these situations. have been seconds. You know, where you've got to run a lot of things through your head. You've got to, first of all, it's biological. It's that self-defense where someone's pointing a weapon at you while they're doing something, and it's straight away you're pointing your weapon at them. It's just that escalation of violence that you do. There's that fight or flee. Now, as soldiers, you're taught to fight. You know what I mean? So that's your first thing that you do is you point your weapon, and then you're running through a billion things in your head. One is my fucking safety catch off. Have I got to round up the spout? Yes, I have, because I'm not fucking stupid. Two, if I squeeze the trigger now, what's going to happen? Is these rounds going to hit that target, or are they going to go elsewhere? You're looking behind him, see if there's anything happened behind him, and then you're going, am I justified in doing this? And this is all within fucking milliseconds. That your brain's synapses are firing these options, these electrical fucking impulses about whether you're going to fucking squeeze that trigger or not. But again, I'm going to go back to my original point. Well, what's happening now is the persecution of these old soldiers. We're breeding this seed of fucking doubt, this seed of hesitance into our current generation of warfighters, where they're looking at mainstream media, and something will happen, and they're going to take their actions. You know what I mean? They aren't going to act on impulse. Now, I'm not talking about SF here that work on different rules of engagement, and they're working different sort of operation. You know what I mean? The chances are, if they're going to go in somewhere and someone's pointing a gun at them, it's not a fucking good person. Where your average rifleman on the ground, your 1-1 bang, or your fucking your Marine fucking rifleman, or your British combat infantryman, you know, we're working in a lot more fluid environment, a hybrid war and stuff like that, where if someone's pointing a weapon at you, this might be a policeman, this might be another nation's soldier, this could be. There's times I was fucking rolling around and I'd have a
Blue
50
on
cal
green
pointed at me.
shit, yeah.
Yeah, I'd had a 50 cal point counted at me by an American Humvee, and I was like, can you clearly fucking tell I'm in a British Army vehicle? You've got you've got 150 cal. I've got a fucking 50 cal and 2 7.62 machine guns. Do you want to have this pissing competition? I've got more guns than you, my friend.
It's a dick measuring contest. It's
yeah. But again, it's that split second. Is hang on, there's a fucking heavy machine gun pointed at me here. I'll point mine back. Then it's like I put my hand up and I push me fucking gun as 50 cal away. It's all right. It's a standing joke, and again, this is meant as no impulse. It's all right. He's fucking American. They are just, you know what I mean, paranoid. You know what I mean? Because of the way that it's been. Again, comes down to that breeding. You know what I mean? It's bred into certain elements of your military where.
But
you've always got to be paranoid. You know what I mean?
There's funny.
And I've seen it with our guys. You know what I mean?
Right.
Where they're pointing a weapon at everything, and you've got to sort of like calm that guy down.
Right.
You know what I mean? Fuck, you don't need to point your weapon at everything.
Finger
off
the
times.
trigger. Yep.
Yeah. You know what I mean?
And that is what separates the professional from the soldier. Honestly, the normal squatty or troopy, right?
Yeah.
Is the amount of time
quickly learned.
is amount of time you can keep that finger off the trigger. And I've had going through places, I'll give you an example. Of course, everywhere you go where there's a checkpoint, there's a dishka pointed at you. But I'll never forget this shit. These guys I trained, and we were going somewhere. I think we were going to Ad Diwania, if I remember right, from Al-Qut. And these dudes came through my academy. And this fucking dude, I'll never forget him. It was hilarious, you know, as we come up. They're all lackadaisical, as they'll be on fucking... and I'm looking, they got RPGs, they got the dishkas, all this shit at this checkpoint. And we come rolling up, and dudes over on the passenger side, you know, checking everybody. And all of a sudden we roll up. I can still go to that area, Wasset Province, and be fine, honestly, because I have that good a name. But it was funny when it happened. I rolled the window down. I looked at old dude, and I knew he was one of my students. And I looked at him, and I said, Salam alaikum. He's like, Mr. Schaff! Yells it like fucking, I've never heard it yelled before, right? Dude, everybody I saw on the dishka, the fucking RPG, everybody, all of a sudden, they're fucking doing their jobs. They were all lackadaisical 5 seconds ago. And all of a sudden they're like, oh, Mrs. Shuff's here. Fuck, I better do my job. And that's one of the things that, it actually gives you a feeling that I honestly can't explain. I can't describe it to any of you in the listening audience. I know Baz gets it. But when you've trained people, there's a difference between training and mentoring, and maybe me and Baz will do a big show on that one. But just to interject, that one point, brother, showed me that there's an old adage that I live by. One person, the right person at the right place, at the right time and space, can, will, and always does make the difference. And that's my 2 cents. So, your thoughts?
Yeah, it certainly is. Again, and again, I think again, I've voiced this on the past. I'm a very strong supporter of your Second Amendment, and more so in the states that is more prevalent. That right person at the right time can fucking change the course of history in certain aspects, if not so much global history, but I'm talking sort of like the history of. Um, let's say you're out grocery
Your
shopping.
sphere of
Yeah,
influence.
and you are in I don't know a fucking groceries or something like that, and then somebody walks in with a shotgun or a pistol or anything like that, and let's say you're not carrying, and you just happen to be that person in front of the cashier at that time, and that gun's pointed at you, and you can see the guy in front of you. He's not a combat veteran or something like that. He's a twitchy fucking young man from the streets who's out to prove himself something, and the guy you standing there who's had experience of that, who gives him the fucking stink eye, but you can't do anything about it. You might not be carrying. You might not have the opportunity to reach down to your fucking waistband or whatever. And that guy behind him might be a CCW, pull out and put a fucking 45 through the back of the cunt's head. You know what I mean? That right person at the right time has allowed you to go home to your family. You know what I mean? So that right person, right time can make the difference. And
It's
that's
about
anywhere.
it's about skill set.
Unfortunately, yeah,
It's about
unfortunately
skill
over
set.
here in the UK, we don't really have that opportunity. We don't have that option because again, through um, there's those for and against weapons in the UK, and again, I've touched on this before. Guns aren't banned in the UK, but we can't freely carry them as much as you can in the US. You know, I mean, but certain places in the US, I mean, you get caught carrying brandishing a firearm in New York City, and chances are you something's bad's going to happen to you. Where very much in the UK, if you're not living in the countryside, carrying a shotgun or a hunting rifle, you know what I mean? If you're carrying a shotgun or a hunting rifle in central London, you're quickly going to be surrounded by a lot of armed police. Um,
Right.
and if something happens, I'll use the word cooked to a certain fucking extent. You know what I mean? Some little cunt pulls a knife on you, and obviously I'm not allowed to carry fucking weapons and the such in the UK for no good reason. Um, Someone pulls a knife on you, you've got not many options. You know, you might have what's oh look, I've picked up a fucking soft teddy bear for my daughter that I might be buying her. I'm not going to fend off a knife attacker with that. You know what I mean? Or run away.
I
You know,
I
and as we get older, running away is not a fucking option.
I
You know,
I follow RYP's thought process on this. Anywhere you go, you can go buy a set of Ginsu knives. Okay. And I'm talking about Robbie Young Pelton. He's a hilarious dude if you actually got to know him. He's a fucking great guy. He sells. At one time, I was a dealer of his knives, the HEST, Hazardous Environment Survival Tool. And but the SF and the this will make you laugh. When I took my son and my wife to meet him, they thought, oh, he's just a Facebook friend. No, we actually met in Afghanistan at a certain time. Maybe I'll get into that one day with him. But the more interesting point was he's like, go buy a pack of Ginsu knives anywhere in the world and carry them around in that pack. You have a knife, right? You always will have a knife that way. You're taking it home. Even if you're staying at a hotel, you're going to cut up some apples, whatever. You can always come up with a cover story.
Yeah.
But even more than that, it's about skill set. I mentally think any police officer or anybody who has a gun near me, once I identify, oh, he's carrying, I'm like, thanks, because that's a gun I own. You know, without any damage to that person, you know, and I would love, no, I wouldn't love it. I would hate it actually because I know the ramifications from it. But if bad guy shows up with a gun and you know I'm not going to get all egoistic on it, but I just understand that more than likely that gun will be in my hands very quickly.
Mm.
And without me going into detail, but I think the serious people understand just because you have a gun in your hand, hands have thumbs, thumbs break, thumbs move where the four fingers won't, and you just go to the less resistance. And guess what? You now own that firearm. And that's all I'll say on that without getting too deep. All right, brother.
Yeah, obviously on that we're quite. I mean, again, that double edged sword is over here. Guns aren't as freely available. They are available. I can own a 50 caliber anti material rifle, perfectly legal. You know, can I own a 9mm Glock? No, I can't. You know what I mean? So I can't shoot
Right.
you from fucking 15 feet away and put a nice little hole in your chest, but I could take your fucking entire top half of your body off at 800 meters away. Perfectly
There you
legal.
go. A mile
Yeah,
away or a mile and a
yeah.
half if you're a
You know,
Canadian.
or put one through your engine block. You, the three people behind you, and your fucking house. You know what I mean? But if there's a police officer in the UK carrying a firearm, then they are very highly trained. You know, they are highly trained. And again, this is no slight to American law enforcement, but I know the way that it works. It's the same in the military that you carry a weapon 24/7. Are you highly proficient at that weapon? When was the last time you
Right.
fired that weapon?
Right.
You know what I mean? You know,
What's your
chances are if
retention ability? And that's
yeah,
the thing. They do not look, I was a federal cop. Let me tell you a little dirty dark secret. And I know you and I have had unless they're military, uh, I do not feel as confident. Now I do against a thug or somebody that's an idiot, right?
yeah,
But I do not feel as confident, I guess, as you do, even with your own country, that they can retain that weapon in a high stress situation, especially if they've never had to fire a shot in anger or they've never pulled a gun and they're not doubting. This goes back to what you said earlier. They're not second guessing themselves on why am I pulling this? Am I going to be found guilty of something? And unless their thought process has been the survival mindset, the easiest way I can explain it, and you know this as well as I do, and we're going to do a show on that, by the way, brother. You know we will. But if they have not fully realized that survival mindset, um, retention is always dubious, to be honest, and that's my 2 cents.
yeah. Um, Again, going back to what we were saying there, it's you know the logistical sort of like stresses that it takes. For example, you take LAPD or NYPD or Miami-Dade or you know, for those guys to get in the range on a frequent basis, there's not enough bullets in
Very
that fucking
rare.
police station. There isn't enough lanes to fucking shoot on. You know, so these guys are maybe doing it once. Now this is me generalizing. I don't know. I'm
Once
not
every
American.
6 months if they're lucky. Once
Yeah,
every 6 months.
where our firearms officers are it's sort of like mandated that they've got to do it every sort of fucking like month and a half, 2 months that they need to have range time. And obviously, our armed police generally don't walk around with just Glocks. they're rocking the MPX, they're rocking the 416s, they're rocking G36s. You know what I mean? But
Right,
I
I
will
get
say
it.
that our firearms officers are very well equipped. Very well equipped. I mean, you go on Google and you just type in British firearms officer, and you'll see the vast array of weaponry they've got. So, and
Long
these aren't locked
guns,
in. Yeah,
long long guns pose a whole different set of circumstances, but the reality is, man, um, on the SRT team at Camp Pendleton, I had to mute that. The dogs go nuts. On the SRT team at Camp Pendleton, we shot daily,
yeah,
and that's a real thing. And if you're not doing it, and you don't have people while you're on the range grabbing at your gun, doing different things, and you don't learn holster retention, you don't learn retention while you're on the range. A good friend of mine, well, I'm not going to drop names. Anyways, he's a 12-time Grand Master of pistol shooting. Awesome dude. I'll give the initials BZ. Um, Dude's an awesome dude. He was a Marine with me, and uh, Mark. Well, shit, I can't even say. Anyways, our instructor was probably one of the best dudes on the planet. Before Rhodesia broke up, he was in the Rhodesian SAS. That's all I'll say about this guy. And anyways, he instituted a formula that finally got diluted after we all left because they didn't want to use him anymore. And he was an actual legit mercenary. We'll talk offline on this guy. You probably know of him. Uh, he's as famous as Cobus Clausen's. And he's even been in a movie you might have seen called Lethal Weapon 1. He was Mr. Lurch. I'll just tell you his name on his screen name. Maybe it'll come up in credits. Fuck, I shouldn't have even mentioned. But if you go to STTU, you'll find books where you'll see us Marines training with him. And that's something I think we've lost. Well, we haven't lost it. Let me rephrase that. That sounds so queer. In all honesty, we're not doing it as much as we used to back in the day. Cross training with European forces with American forces because we gained a lot from their stuff and they gained a lot from ours. And that's something I think we're missing out on too, unless you're in an operational area. Your thoughts?
yeah. It's that old sort of skill fade, and if you're lucky enough to have the opportunity, like you said there in the SRT, you've got the opportunity to practice those skills daily, practice new skills, test yourself. You can only you can be the best you can be. You know what I mean? The best you can be up until that point where you need to pull that weapon out of its holster, shoulder that rifle, and squeeze the trigger. You know what I mean? You can only train to a certain extent, but it's certainly 95% of that battle is doing the training. I'd rather do 1 day's training and then face someone
Exactly.
6 months down the line than have no training whatsoever and meet
Yep.
them tomorrow. It's and again, it's a conversation that we had not so long ago in the military where and it was don't do like sort of retention and shit like that because retention in the British military at the minute is like it's like fucking horrendous. We're losing
Right.
a battalion strength a month of people. Well, when I say battalion strength, one of the UK battalions, a normal infantry battalion, you're looking around about 600 people. We're losing 800 people a month from the British military. So
That's
it was,
massive.
yeah, because we're such a small military, like I've said before, I won't keep going on about it. But
Right.
they're looking at different ways to sort of like affect retention. And one of them is the way that we train. We had a team come in from like Army HQ and they sat us all down, like all the senior ranks, and they said, okay, what we're going to go through what we call our mandatory annual testing, our mats, and we're going to break them down. And you you get basically there's no rank. It's an open forum. You tell us your thoughts on it. And they thought they were going to be there for about an hour. They were there 8 hours later as we just
Right.
fucking destroyed every mat. We said, why are we doing X amount of fucking hours, like days in reality? Um,
Mandated when it's not needed to be mandated. They could just give real life. That's, dude, that is a bugaboo that I have fought against when I was in, honestly. Um, it, that bugaboo of it's got to be this amount of time. No, some people can reeve up on it, give the instructors the latitude to understand they have met the requirements, and then that instructor has the freedom to actually take them to the next level. And that's something that you don't see normally. Your thoughts?
yeah, it's again, you could be taught as only as good as your instructor. You know, if you've got a strong instructor, you're going to be well taught. If you've got a weak instructor, you've got to sort of fill in the gaps if you're able to do so. Um, an instructor can be instructed, an instructor can be mentored. An instructor that initially might be absolutely fucking garbage can turn out to be one of the best instructors you've ever had because again he's been mentored, he's changed the way his instruction, and it might not because he's a shit instructor. It might be because he's been given shit to teach with,
Shit
or
doctrine, shit
yeah,
fucking lesson plans. That's
yeah.
the reality of it. I mean, it's become a PowerPoint prison, and that is something that's big. Now I'm gonna post one of the two pictures that you agreed I could post. Is that okay or not? I will do
Yeah,
it if you want
yeah.
me to,
Feel
because
free,
this is
brother.
after '09, and I don't know which one will come up because we planned on doing a longer show yesterday. But it'll either be the night vision one or the other one, and I'll tell you which one comes up. Okay,
I
brother?
think they're from 2007.
Oh,
Those
this
ones.
is the one where one wheel's up. Okay, in
Yeah,
daylight. Yep,
they're
that's
from about
awesome.
2007, 2008.
Cool.
Yeah, so it's again, we pulled these things apart. You know, it goes back to the original subject of the show: is the differences of our military. Is that we're getting a lot more say now in the way that we actually train our troops. And we were saying, why are we doing this? Our we're talking like specifically infantry centric now, where it was why are we doing
Right.
our fitness tests in trainers and shorts? Well, you know, when as an infantryman, the time you're going to be putting this fitness to the test is we have something called a Brecon 2 miler that you do in the infantry battle school in Brecon, where it's basically you're in belt kit, you've got your rucksack on your day sack, you've got your weapon system, your helmet, and your body armor on. You're carrying full battle load, and you've got 18 minutes to do 2 miles. You know,
You got your
um,
battle rattle on. Yep.
yeah, yeah. It's over varying terrain. It's not up and down a road. You know what I mean? It's up and down hills and so on. And it's 2 miles, and that's the best test that we've got as an infantryman. So we've tried to sort of like say we need to be doing that more. We need to be doing that more. We don't need to be sitting in classrooms learning how not to rape cunts and drink ourselves to death. You know what I mean? And doing values and standards. We know that because we're military, and
Right.
we don't go out raping cunts. Well, 99.9% of us don't. You know what I mean? But 99.9% of us need to be on the range a lot more than fucking we are. So why aren't we doing that?
Fuck
And
yeah.
it's like we need to be doing this. See ya, you know, see ya. And I dare say it's the same in your military. See you is basically
Exactly.
something that's just gone like right. Let's do see ya. You sit there and you do a PowerPoint presentation, watch a couple of videos, answer a couple of questions, and that yeah, don't see ya. You know what I mean? It's like no, if we're going to do it, why aren't we doing it fucking properly? Why aren't we taking our guys to the mountains and saying right? Is some RVs. You need to get to this RV. You need to combat survival and stuff like that. And it's out there. You can do it because we've got combat survival instructors. I was mentioning offline earlier. There's some of the courses that we've done. Um, we should be given that opportunity instead of being forced to do menial shit day in day out, which is a massive thing. I know when I was back in a battalion, it's what breaks guys. They're thinking, why am I doing this shit again? I've done this shit fucking last month. You know, and again, so the way that we train, we're falling into that doctrinal Cold War
Yep.
attitude where it's just train, train, train for training's fucking sakes, and it's the same training over and over again. Where it wasn't the worthwhile training we're doing, beat up training to go and kick doors in Afghanistan and Iraq. You know what I mean? That's what the type of training that we need to be carrying on with, where
But
it's keeping our guys current. And like I said, the average infantryman of my experience that we were doing in Afghanistan was operating at a level that the SF were operating at 7, 8, 10 years before that. You know what I mean? It's because of the weapon systems they're
I
using.
do know. Yeah.
Yeah, you know what I mean. So that's the type of shit that we need to be doing.
Well,
Um,
you're seeing some of that. You're not over here, and when you do come over here, we'll chew the fat, brother, and we'll do some awesome videos and stuff that we'll do. But you are seeing something happening where SF dudes and a bunch of dudes just get together, have a good time, go to a range, and of course that's not everything's never always filmed, and you are seeing where people are actually training to a different. I gotta.
okay, but he's got a wolf attack. Yeah, I fully agree with what you're saying. You know that it is an issue of training, and those in command are pressured into justifying the man hours and the budgets. You know, um, yeah, so it is a struggle that the military are having to face these days, and unfortunately, quite selfishly, it's not my problem anymore. You know, I mean, it's not your problem anymore. Those who we've mentored and led and worked with. Yeah, so it is a strong one. Um, so this shows is sort of like touched on the way the military is changing, and it is changing in ways for the better and for the worse. For the average soldier on the ground, ask one of those. You know what I
Yes.
mean? Next time, if you are one of these people that sees a soldier and you want to thank him for his service, or her service, let's because it's obviously there's
Oh
females in the
yeah, of
front line
course.
now.
Right.
Um, Instead of asking them thank you for your service, if you've got a couple of minutes, just say, "How are you finding? You know what I mean? Life in the military these days. You know, are you enjoying it? What's good?" And you'll probably be surprised at what they tell you.
And write your congressman or your MP in England, and honestly, tell them this is what they're lacking. If they are saying we're lacking this kind of training, push this and push it to them in a real way. That's something nobody's talking about right now, is that we still have a minor bit of control of what we're talking about, and what we want people to know out there, that we are trying to say, help. If you support our troops, then help them get the training they need. And if you don't want to do that, then you're a fraud. You're somebody out there not wanting to do anything to support anything that's real. And I'm going to put the other picture up. This is the night vision picture. You guys will all love this. And that's all I have to say on that. But, brother, I get you on so many different levels. That's why we've been, fuck, how many years, man?
A lot,
Yeah,
10 years coming
10
up. Yeah,
years.
no,
Yeah,
even more.
more. Yeah, yeah.
And it's sort of like you know, I mean, recently that we've sort of decided to do these shows after chatting for a while, and hopefully I've been bringing another angle to the big orange sofa.
You do.
You know, and I hope those listening could agree. If they don't, please let fucking Shuff know. Tell me to shut up, you Brit cunt. You
They
know,
won't.
or
They actually probably love you more than they do me. The sword pointers, they
I
point
talk
me
too
in the
much.
direction they want to go, so I will always go in that direction. But honestly, folks, we have so much we've talked about offline. I don't think there's ever going to be a time where we don't have enough to say on issues, and this one honestly was so refreshing because you guys got an actual talk that Baz and I do constantly. And these are real conversations that you get to eavesdrop into. And I'll let you finish out because I know you need to close.
Cheers, brother. It's been a pleasure again. And those to listen, it's been a pleasure to actually, I'd like to say speak with you, but probably speak at you. Um, yeah, so the main subject was the show was like the change in the military of then and now. And I feel that we've done a sterling job as both nations, as that special relationship, both as a partnership and individually in your areas of operation. I know that the US has a very large footprint across the globe, as does the British. And we're all doing the same thing and different things. And we excel in one thing where we need to work at the other. And I'd just like to say, if there is anybody listening out there that is still serving or is thinking of serving, that you have my respect as a
Mine too.
soldier, as a soldier of a quarter of a century. I know the struggles that you face every day, that your families face every day, and you're doing a job that's very thankless. You know what I mean? It, like Shuff said the other day, or earlier on, you're only worth something when the wolf's at the door. You know, and it'll always be the same. It'll never fucking change. It was the same when before me and Shuff joined, as we were in the military, and it'll be the same for you guys. And obviously to those who aren't fighting combat operations, but is doing the same type of work, uniform services, contractors. You know what I mean? You're thankless. LEO, again, massive respect to you. And I'd just like to
Yep.
say that the military's changed for the better and for the worse, and we'll always be war fighters through and through. We'll always put foot to ass wherever we need to and come out on top, even though sometimes the media and whatever narrative spun that we haven't. Again, myself and Shuff have got quite a lot of shows lined up. Some serious, some not so serious, more laughs and things like that. I
Oh
mean,
yeah, I
we've had
can't wait for the
a,
not so serious because
a
these
conversation of nearly an hour and earlier where we were both pissing ourselves laughing.
these
You know,
folks when they get to not so serious, the funny stuff that has occurred, they are going to laugh their dicks or their clits off. It's
yeah,
going to be so funny because the stories that we have are epic in nature and I don't think anybody understands. But it
yeah.
will be like I said, man, this is a time capsule. Um and that's my point to it. And with that being said, stick around. You can mute yourself. We'll talk offline here in a second. I'll do the outro music. And of course, it's by Axion Ghost. Inside Enemy Headquarters. Link will be in the description. Much love to you all. Thank you guys for listening to Baz and I, us two old cunts. And I'm a balding cunt now. So, you know.
I'm probably bolder than you, brother. I'm just not. I'm just not. I'm just not fighting it. The fucking lot's shaved off.
Yeah, I'm a top knot cunt. I want to hide it. All right, brother. So we'll talk offline, and this, folks, if you haven't listened to any of these shows, this is the most important show. You need to like, comment honestly, and share. And share it. I don't care if you download it. This stuff's for free. I don't monetize. And I have these conversations very seldom. And when I do, you get real conversations with real people that have been there, done that, got the t-shirt. And Baz and I have several shows coming up that you guys are going to love. With that being
Just
said, okay, go on.
just a point to note. You said you don't monetize out there. I've got to let the listeners know that Shuff does pay me in thought. That he sends me nudes after every show. So I'll just put that one out there
Oh, of
as a thank
course.
you.
I throw you the dick pics, bro. I
Right, take care, brother, and I'll
love you.
speak soon.
Talk to you in a minute. All right.
Bug
Bye.
out.